Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Before I get to my prepared remarks and introduce our keynote speaker, I feel obligated to thank two people in particular. You know, there are a lot of people who have been very instrumental in getting this day up and going and getting everyone here and organizing it. But there are two people in particular that I think are really the driving forces behind this, and I want to thank both of them. The first, of course, is Dr. Nitsa Kardish. Nitsa is the spirit of AgriVest. It was her idea. She's the one who's built it and promoted it, and she's just done a wonderful job and is a great partner to work with. The second person, and I don't see her, maybe she's outside in the lobby, because Michal Elmakias is really the person who more than anyone else has done the heavy lifting to get this event off the ground, and she's probably still outside organizing and making sure that everything works. So I don't know if she can hear us, but Michal, thank you very much. I want to give you a very brief advertisement for the Trendlines group before I introduce our speaker, but it's not a gratuitous, hey, I'm making this because I can, because I'm up here and you're back there and you have to listen to me, Ed. It's actually an advertisement with a moral, with a lesson that highlights the importance of our next presentation and the entire AgriVest event. Trendlines, as many of you know, is in the innovation commercialization business. We start companies. We start roughly 4 or 5 new companies every year in the agri-tech space. Our mission is to create and develop companies that will improve the human condition, and there's no better area to do that in the agricultural technology field. What's really important, though, about how we work at Trendlines is the way we partner. I talked about Nitsa and Michal, and Nitsa talked about the rest of the wonderful Trendlines team. We partner with our team. We partner with the great entrepreneurs who come with the fantastic and creative ideas that turn into companies down the way. We partner with government. This afternoon, Anya Eldan from the Office of the Chief Scientist will be with us in one of the panels as a judge, and they're a wonderful partner. We partner with investors, and we're very glad to see many of you here today. And we partner with industry. One of those partnerships is with Bayer Crop Science, as Nitsa mentioned. That's a new relationship. It's actually an old relationship that's been formalized this year, and we're extremely pleased to have a distinguished delegation from Bayer with us today, including Bernard Leroux, Bernie, Johan Boterman, and Marc-André Godertz, who've come all the way from all over Europe and interrupted their busy acquisition of Monsanto in order to come and visit with us today. Also here with us is Tomer Pfeffer, who's the CEO of Bayer here in Israel. And it's just great to have a partnership like this. And partnering is really what AgriVest is all about. It's about encouraging and facilitating partnerships. And one of the things about Israelis is that we're not shy. And I encourage all of you to not be shy during the breaks, during the meals, during the networking. Go up and talk to people, because really the true value of this event is the relationships that are created and developed during the next 8 or so hours. There are lots of stories, and some of them you'll hear from the stage today. Others we can talk about later, of relationships that were created at past AgriVests, and this is a wonderful opportunity with people from all over the world to create new and lasting relationships that will be good business for everyone. So if we're talking about partnering, it gives me great pleasure to be introducing our keynote speaker, Dr. Adrian Percy. All right. Okay. Adrian has a doctorate in biochemistry, and if you go online, you can read all about his impressive CV. He's been an active scientist with BCS, with Bayer Crop Science, and its legacy companies since 1991. In 2014, Adrian was named the head of R&D of Research and Development for all of Bayer Crop Science. As the head of R&D for Bayer, he has some 5,000 scientists and technical staff reporting to him. So you could ask, with all that talent, why does Bayer Crop Science need partners? Why does Bayer Crop Science reach out? Well, I think that Adrian, perhaps more than anyone else in the Bayer organization, has been spearheading really a conceptual, cultural, and technological revolution at Bayer over the last 2 years in his position and probably even before. I don't think you just suddenly wake up one morning and decide to start a revolution. I'll actually read from Adrian's own words. He wrote, "I believe that the way we need to innovate in the future will be different than how we've done it in the past in order to solve the daunting world challenges like feeding 9 billion people by 2050 and finding new technologies to help protect crops against changes in climatic conditions." Adrian's going to be talking to us about Bayer Crop Science's approach to open innovation, a radical idea from a company that's over 100 years old and probably very conservative for many of those 100 years. He's going to be talking about Bayer's commitment to positioning itself as a partner of choice in agriculture. And so it gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Adrian Percy to address us this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I have to admit, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, it's my first time to Israel. And I should have been here a long time ago. And I think last night and today already, meeting so many entrepreneurs and scientists and people who are so excited to be part of this ecosystem. I wish I'd come here a long time before. And I really think you should be proud. I mean, I flew in yesterday into Tel Aviv, and for the last half an hour, I just saw this incredibly diverse and challenging agricultural system that you have developed here in Israel. With arid conditions, but still crops happily growing in the fields. It's really incredible to see, and it just shows the importance of everything that you do here in this Agtech community. So normally when I come to these types of events, I get to talk about how exciting agriculture is right now. And as you heard, I've actually been in this business for 25 years, so I've got a bit of a milestone this year. But I don't think I need to convince anyone here that agriculture is a really, really exciting place to be. And as a company that has worked for 150 years in this sector, we've had to evolve and change through those years if we want to survive and grow as a company. And we continue to do that. And I'm absolutely convinced in those words that you heard earlier that innovation has to come through collaboration. It has to come through cooperation. And we've actually very much modeled ourselves and particularly our R&D efforts around collaborations moving forward within Bayer. And this involves organizational changes, so we've actually structured units that deliberately reach out to entrepreneurs, to startups, to bigger institutions, but also internally, because one of the most challenging things that we have actually is a cultural challenge, and that's to make sure that the scientists who work within our company are as engaged with the outside world as those people which are really creating those relationships for us in the first place. And so this is really important that we have this cultural change as well. And I'm sure I'm not talking just for Bayer. I think any multinational worth its salt is really having to relook at how it does connect with the outside world, particularly in the area of innovation. Now, I was told that perhaps Bayer is not known so well in Israel. So if you permit me just a couple of minutes, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Bayer Crop Science, and this secret that is out of the box now that we've reached a merger agreement with Monsanto, even though that's subject to regulatory approval and won't certainly happen overnight. And it was great last night. We have some potential future colleagues of mine here from Monsanto, so it was great to meet them. So Bayer is a big company. Again, we've been around for about 150 years. We're kind of a portfolio-based company, so we're working in different areas. But there's one thing that brings us all together, and that's science and innovation, and using science to improve the lives of individuals. And basically, whether we have scientists working in our pharma division, within consumer health, within crop science, we're all looking to develop molecules which interfere with cellular processes, with biochemical processes, to produce results which will be beneficial to mankind. And so this is very, very important to us. And you can see from our R&D investment across the company, we are investing a lot of money. This is a significant amount of money, and of course, what we're looking to do is work with scientists across all of these different areas. If you're working in crop science, you want to get the perspective of a chemist in the pharmaceutical area, and that's one of the very exciting things that we have in our company. You can see that we have 3 divisions, and we have a business that's attached to one of them. So we have pharmaceutical division, well known in the areas of women's health, oncology, and a number cardiovascular and a number of other areas. We have a consumer health business that I'm told, because I had to ask this, Bifantrin, which I'm told is a well-known brand in Israel, but we have a lot of brands of very, very well-known over-the-counter type medicines, things like aspirin, which of course was a Bayer invention and kind of one of the wonder drugs of the last century. And then we have animal health, and we're very, very active in that area with large animals, but also with companion animals. And last but not least, crop science. So crop science is an important part of our business. It's one of the smaller parts of the business right now, but of course with our ambitions with Monsanto, that would make it really a very, very significant part of the future Bayer business setup. We are very, very well represented across the world, so we're present here in Israel, but also in every single continent, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, wherever there are crops grown, we tend to have a presence. And we're really working in three different areas. So first and foremost, we develop inputs. So we are trying to develop the best crop protection chemicals, new biologicals, seeds in the area that we work in. We don't have a presence in all seed crops, but we're particularly present in crops such as cotton, canola, vegetable seeds. Wheat is the one that we are developing in, soybeans, these types of seeds. And also to provide services to farmers, how to best apply these products, and to do that in the most sustainable manner. So one of the newer approaches we have is really to advise growers on how to best use our products so they can know where and when to use the product, so that basically every drop of any chemical solution that they used goes to good effect and actually has an effect in their field. We also work a lot with stewardship activities. We recognize that there is a big responsibility of our industry to show that we are acting sustainably and we are supporting agricultural sustainability, so that is a big part of our activity. And last but not least, it's working together. It's all about collaboration and cooperation, whether it's at the scientific level, the technology level, but also with general society. This is very, very important to us. These are some of the areas that we're more specifically working in. And as a crop science division, these are basically form our R&D targets, and these are often the subject of technology collaborations that we have. So for instance, in the area of weed control, which is a massive issue around the world, with so few new herbicide modes of action available to growers over the last few years, and then resistance building up in many, many major cropping areas. So we work on new chemicals, selective and non-selective chemical solutions. We're looking for new modes of action, which is so, so important and valuable to growers, but also looking at how we can make crops tolerant to some of these herbicides through GM and non-GM approaches. We're working in all of these different areas on disease management. Again, a massive issue facing growers, both in the arable areas, but also in the horticultural areas. So whether it's a chemical solution, a biological, breeding through native traits or GM traits, we're looking in this area. Insect control as well, another very, very challenging area, and also made more challenging by a lot of the regulatory issues that we have around insecticides, particularly in the areas of beneficials and pollinators. And so finding a selective insecticide which doesn't hurt a bee or another pollinator is a big, big challenge, but we're looking. And then last but not least, yield enhancement and stress, so things like nitrogen use efficiency. Making sure that our crops are more resistant to drought and to arid conditions, which of course in Israel is a very viable and important thing. So these are the type of areas we're working on as a company. This is our investment in R&D, which has gone up year on year. Again, this is, I think, reflective of the challenges that are faced by society right now. We heard about the 9 or 10 billion people that we expect on this planet in 2050. That's almost another 3 billion over what we have today. I mean, this is a credible amount of new mouths to feed when we will not have more arable land, and we'll probably have less, and we'll probably have more challenges when it comes to things like climate. Now, as I mentioned, we have made a very ambitious bid for a big company called Monsanto. We feel that this provides enormous value to growers, to shareholders, to everyone concerned, and I'll explain why. Because basically, This is the coming together of two very, very complementary businesses. Now, as I mentioned before, we are present in seeds, but certainly not to the extent that Monsanto is, and certainly not in some of the very, very keen crops and key crops of the world, such as corn and soybeans. And so what we have done, and what our ambition is to actually merge with them in the next year or so, to create basically a very, very big R&D innovation-driven engine that has both on one side the best seed technology in the world, and on the other side from Bayer, the best chemistry, the best biological solutions. And of course, Monsanto have been very, very active in the area of precision farming as well. And this is a really exciting add-on as well in terms of how can we help make sure that the crops that we are sowing or the products that we're using to protect them are applied in the most efficient way for a grower. Again, I love the analogy of the grower trying to understand how to use his iPad in the cab of the tractor, and it is complicated, and it has to be about putting the grower customer-centric here and helping him with a tool that is actually useful and understandable to him, because we do all get lost in technology, I agree. So as you can see, in terms of an R&D investment, and sorry to throw some more numbers at you, but this would be 2.5 billion per year in R&D. And this is not all internal R&D, that's why I want to emphasize. This is a lot of this money, both companies spend approximately a quarter of their R&D budgets externally, partnering with other companies because of the belief that we need to work together to find new innovative solutions. But you can see we will be a very, very big R&D engine. So that was just to give you a little bit of flavor about Bayer and Bayer Crop Science and the potential merger with Monsanto. Now talking a little bit about where we are. So as I mentioned, farming is going through many, many transformations. We've seen it. It's a very, very exciting time to be in agriculture, but it's a very daunting challenge that we have in front of us. Growing more food with less is not an easy thing to do. We know that in many parts of the world we are suffering from natural resource depletion, whether it be water in California, whether it be the overuse of nitrogen in some parts of the world as well. These are real issues that we have to help farming work through. There's also many, many expectations coming from society. As I mentioned before, this isn't just about what the farmer wants, but it's also what the end consumer expects from us. And there we have to make enormous progress as well. On the other side, farm economies, it is not easy to be a farmer. Particularly right now, we have a flat market. We have farmers who struggle sometimes to make any sort of profit. And we see a big, big drive towards efficiency, particularly of the big farms. I've been on amazing farms in places like Brazil, where we have, some cases, hundreds of thousands of acres in a single farm, where they may crop 3 times per year, where you may see a harvester followed right behind by a planter. It is an incredible sight to see how these farmers are producing food on this mass scale in order to feed the future 10 billion people on the market. And that's not just happening in Brazil, of course. We're seeing this in the US. We're seeing this around the world with the consolidation of farms as people try to make profit when food prices are low. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of demographic changes. Farmers are getting older. If you go to somewhere like Japan, we have an average age of farmers in the very high 60s. Even in the US, which is a very technology advanced country in terms of farming, we're seeing average age of farmers in the upper 50s. These farmers are looking to move on. They're looking to do different types of things. They're looking for the next generation of farmers to follow them. These farmers may be even more technology savvy than the ones that they're replacing. And of course, with everything that's going on around the iPad and digital farming and all of these other things, they're going to need to be technology savvy. And last but not least, we have an incredible, exciting time in the biosciences. You mentioned gene editing. This is a great time to be a biologist and to learn how we can much more efficiently develop new crop varieties than we could in the past. So traditionally in R&D, in a big company like Bayer, what we've done is we've tested hundreds of thousands of molecules per year. We obtain these molecules from all over the world, we synthesize them, we try to find leads, and we basically go through a funnel system. And we're hoping from those 100,000 or 200,000 molecules that we start at the beginning of the process maybe one or two hits the marketplace at the end, which may be 10 or 15 years later. This is not really a sustainable model if we only do this. We really have to widen and broaden our approach if we're going to be successful. With the regulatory challenges that we face, with the fact that it's harder and harder to find new chemistry, to find new targets, this is not a sustainable model. So what we are trying to do, companies like Bayer, but also our competitors, are looking what are the starting points. And there are a lot of starting points. We can go out to startups, we can go out to other companies, we can go out to academics and try to find other sources of innovation, be they another chemical class, or be it something completely unrelated to what we're doing currently. And this really helps us widen and broaden the funnel, and that's what we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, it is about commercializing a product for us, and it is about putting something useful in the hands of a farmer for which he finds value. And again, you can see there's all of these different contributions, all these different possibilities, and we as a company are trying all of them. You'll see a lot of cross-licensing in our industry. It's very interesting how companies basically swap molecules to meet particular holes that they may have in their portfolio or their pipeline. It's interesting to see how companies are looking for completely new approaches, biological approaches, and moving away from chemistry in some places, or moving out of herbicides and putting more emphasis in insecticides. It's very interesting to see the changes that are going on right now. So the approach we've taken is through lots of collaborations. And you can see I'll go through a few examples just to give you a kind of taste of the type of things we do. But basically, we were looking for strategic partnerships. In the past, we've tended to have a lot of scientist-to-scientist interaction, and maybe an interesting paper came out as a final output. That's not going to help us necessarily bring a new innovation to a grower. So we're looking at much more strategic types of partnerships where we're partnering with big organizations, with whole academic institutions, with whole universities in some cases, and looking to tap into different competencies that they may have within those organizations. We're also looking at an open innovation approach, and this is kind of new for us, and it's exciting, and we don't really know what will come out of it. We have an internal program we call WeSolve. So you saw before we have about 120,000 people working within Bayer. That's a lot of talent. There's a lot of scientists there. There's a lot of people that are, very commercially savvy. And what we do is we put out challenges, and we ask them their ideas, and we've got back, in the 2 years or so we've been doing this, some really great ideas to move us forward. And we want to take that to the next level and go out to universities and academics and ask them for their input as well. And this is kind of crowdsourcing solutions and responses to challenges. We have another program called Grant for Traits and Grant for Targets, where we're actually reaching out through social media to academics, asking them for new ideas around chemistry. And this has been running for about 6 months, and we've already had about 60 responses from 14 different countries. So there's a lot of interest in these types of open innovation platforms. And we're also employing venture capital. And of course, we are delighted to have this relationship with Trendlines here in Israel. But we have other venture capital partners which really cover all of the different geographic areas that we see innovation coming from. And a lot of these VCs are actually working together, which is, I think, quite unique perhaps in our sector. It's very collegiate, and people are helping each other and co-investing in different startups, which is really exciting to see, I think. So in terms of what we're trying to do, these are the types of areas that we have challenges in, that we're looking for ideas, that we're looking to partner with people outside of the company to supplement and complement the internal research that we're already doing. So whether it's in chemistry with things like looking for different types of pest control, weed control, disease control, looking at how we can enhance yield, whether it's with new biological approaches, looking at how, for instance, we can reduce stress in the field, perhaps help with nutrient uptake in the soil, these types of things, working on microbiome projects. These are all the types of things we're interested in. With traits, looking at how traits can perhaps help with drought resistance, and these types of things as well. With breeding, with vegetables, with feed crops as well. So there's a lot of different targets that we're looking as a company for help with. So I just wanted to give you kind of a little bit of an insight about the types of collaboration we have, just to give you a couple of examples. First of all, we have an R&D strategy within crop science, which is basically what you see on the board here. So it's helping to make a difference using cutting-edge science, helping farmers to be more profitable, to be more sustainable in their operations. And to that strategy, we have 4 pillars. One is offering them really differentiating solutions, things that really meet the needs and the issues that they have today. 2 is to do it in a way that really implies societal acceptance. So this is around sustainability or the types of technologies that we may be bringing in different markets. 3 is about really exploiting all the exciting new technologies that are out there. And again, evolving from perhaps what we did 10 years ago or 20 years ago into the new sciences, the big data, the genome editing, these types of approaches for the future. And then last but not least, working with our people, whether they be internal or external, to achieve all of this. So just to give you a couple of examples. Targenomics, they're a small organization. They came out of the Max Planck Institute in Potsdam in Germany. It's really exciting to work with a group like this because they're young, enthusiastic scientists. They're very agile in the sense that they're a small group, but they're working very complementary themselves. And they're helping us with a kind of systems biology approach to finding new herbicide modes of action. The GRDC is actually a grain association representing growers out of Australia. They have so many issues with weed resistance in Australia that they have actually teamed up with us to actually sponsor our research. So we're working with them to find new herbicides on driver weeds, which are important for Australia, but of course we also hope they'll be important for other places around the world. And it's very, very unusual to actually have a growers group investing directly in R&D. So this is something we're very, very proud of. If you take another idea, biologics. I mean, there's a lot of advances in the area of biologics. We're working with a small company out of St. Louis called Elemental Enzymes that have some new technology which helps with protein display, so actually helping deliver enzymes to the roots within the soil. And this, again, is the basis of one of our biggest products, the next generation product that we're about to launch onto the market. So as I said before, we're also working in the area of social acceptance. One area that many of you will know about is the effects of insecticides on bee health, on pollinator health. There are many, many causes for some of the issues that we see with pollinator health. Insecticides have been one of the areas that have been targeted. And of course, as a major insecticide manufacturer, we have a responsibility to really understand the science, but also to bring some perspective to what's going on there and look perhaps if we can find more bee-safe solutions moving forward. So as a company, we've been working on bee health for many, many years. We have a research site in Germany. We started studies in 1940, so this goes back a long way. And we have a number of bee health institutes where we're sponsoring basic research on bee health, working with academics around the world. But we're also trying to find new approaches to finding selective insecticides. So this is one example of a project we have that includes a university or a research institution in the UK called Rothamsted Research, where we're actually looking at detoxification mechanisms in bees. We've identified which cytochrome P450s are detoxifying insecticides within bees. We're basically creating transgenic Drosophila, and then we're using that as a screening to see if we can find bee-selective insecticides. And we're not just doing it for bees, we're looking at other pollinators as well in the field. So this is the kind of approach that we want. And we couldn't really do some of this work without organisms or organizations like Rothamsted to work with. So I won't go back to the other one, but I'll just say the other one that I put up accidentally there, I can't see the screen, my eyes are too bad, was an example that we're working on in Brazil, where we have, obviously, you're probably aware, the development of Asian soybean rust over the last 50 years. It's really reached endemic proportions. Depending on the year, they may have sometimes up to 60% yield loss. Companies like ourselves are trying to find new fungal solutions to this very big issue. In our case, we're working with Embrapa, which is the Brazilian main agricultural institute. We're mapping out the fungal pathogen. We're trying to understand it so we can then develop new solutions against it. I mentioned that there are a lot of exciting things going on in science. And again, it's not for us just about bringing a new product to the market, but it's also about working on enabling technologies. One of the most exciting ones is the whole area of what we're calling targeted genome optimization, which isn't a very sexy title, I give you, but this would include things such as gene editing. And we really see this as a big step forward in our breeding activities. And there is a lot of companies working in this area. There's a lot of different tools that are available. You've probably heard of CRISPR-Cas9, which is one of the most renowned scientific innovations of the last few years, that even teenagers, my kids even know what that is. It's incredible. And so these types of things we think will bring new solutions into the breeding area. Also allow us to design new types of crops, perhaps crops which have a higher nutritional value, or a crop that or an oilseed crop that has a different oil profile. That I hope that consumers will really see the value of these types of things. We're also working in the area of computational life sciences. Again, this is linked to digital farming, but also is very, very important as an enabling technology where we can actually bring together the different approaches that we're taking in our labs. And then last but not least, digital farming itself. And here, there are all kinds of approaches, but for us what this means is developing products that help farmers optimize the use of their inputs. And we've got collaborations with companies that have satellites, for instance, that are helping us map out areas of stress in a field over time. So again, we can help provide growers with advice moving forward. So within our R&D organization, as you heard, we have about 5,000 scientists and technicians. That's a lot of people. It's actually a lot of people speaking a lot of different scientific languages. And it's very, very challenging for us to actually sometimes speak the same language and bring these scientists together. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we have internally. And then, of course, to do that externally is another challenge as well. We also see that in key areas, there is a lack of internal and external competency. One area would be, for instance, in the regulatory sciences. I don't know in Israel, but certainly in Western Europe and in the US, there are no real regulatory programs. And so, for instance, we're building one with one university partner that we have to build an actual academic program to develop not just people from within Bayer, but also people from outside Bayer, and to develop them into regulatory scientists. We're also working with many countries around the world to help develop chemistry competencies. So I mentioned with the GRDC earlier, where we have this big agreement. Part of that agreement is that we will employ 11 postdocs on a continual basis from Australia and New Zealand who will come into our labs, who will learn about chemistry in an industrial setting, and then we'll go back to Australia later on and add to their chemical competencies that they so need to, to move their academics, but also their industry forward. Now, you know all of this. I learnt, and I've certainly been really amazed at the kind of breadth and the ecosystem that you have here in terms of Agtech in Israel. And clearly, it's a very, very exciting place to be. We've actually had a footprint here for a number of years. One of our biggest products, which is a product called Votivo, which is a Bacillus firmus biological strain, which has protection against nematodes, but also it has yield-enhancing effects, actually comes from a company here in Israel. We've also worked on research partnerships with companies like Evogene. And then, of course, last but not least, really delighted that we've managed to set up this relationship with Trendlines. So as I said, we want to be a partner of choice. We're not the only people that will tell you that. What we're trying to do is think, how can we best be that partner of choice to the academics, to the startups? And as I mentioned before, one of the things we have to look at is the cultural aspects. So within Bayer, we have what we believe are some core strengths. We are a very technically based company. We're the kind of company that may drive you mad sometimes because we want to test things several times before we're convinced. But it's one of our core competencies that we're very proud of, and we have that internal scientific capability to really back up that claim. To add to that, though, we want to partner with people in areas such as creativity, with customer focus, innovation. These are areas that we feel we have strengths in, but we feel there are also perhaps even greater strengths outside. So this is part of how we want to develop ourselves internally, but also how we want to connect with those type of people outside the company. And so we have this kind of behavioral approach. We're very proud of the innovations that we brought to the market, and obviously through the potential deal with Monsanto, we'll have an even bigger conduit to get these products to the market. Now, you may not know all of these products. These are brand names with the active ingredient as well, where it's appropriate. But basically, some of these are, we would call best in class. They are, or first in class in many sectors that have actually gone in. And so we'd like to think that when we work with partners, that they have a shot to play in this actual commercialization aspect, where we'll get some of these very, very big products into the marketplace. And we've decided we need to secure money. It's not easy to find $10 million within our company, to be honest, and to say we have this great idea that we want to invest it in. And we've actually found about 60 million that we're investing currently across all of our venture capital partners, with the idea that we can incubate new ideas, that we can be there at the start, that we can partner with new companies that perhaps we can license at some point, or even acquire in some cases at some point down the road. And as I said, we're working in all of these different areas, and this isn't everything, because as you would see, things like digital farming we could add on top here, different types of application technology. How do our products, how are they best applied, for instance, through a drip irrigation? Are they compatible with that? So there is a lot of adjacencies outside of these core competencies that we look to work on, and we try to understand that we have people internally that can actually have those conversations with you. Another thing that is very unique about us is the fact that we are this multinational but also multi-divisional. So as I said before, we're actually working across pharma and agricultural science. And actually what we're seeing in the external world is a lot of inventions coming out of pharma are going directly into ag. And probably 5-10 years ago, that was not the case. At least they wouldn't come in immediately. And before some bright spark, perhaps 3 or 4 years down the road, would say, oh, maybe we should look at ag now. Now they're coming out, and almost simultaneously, some of these new areas are going directly into ag. And so we have a little bit of an advantage, I think, internally, because we can also access through our pharma colleagues some of these ideas. And we've set up something called the Bayer Life Science Center that is actually looking directly at this. Are there new technologies out there that could be applicable not just to agricultural science and agriculture in general, but also in pharma? And then we can perhaps actually get access to those technologies and use them across, a variety of different applications. So that's what I wanted to explain to you. I hope you gave you a little bit of a feeling for the type of company that we are, the kind of company we want to become, how we're looking to collaborate more and more with the outside world, how we see this as amazing opportunity right now with all that's going on in science, all that's going on in technology, to really be a great partner. So thanks very much.